Hello, Smoking Brothers family. Welcome to Smoke Hollow down here in Southeast Missouri. Got two friends here today that we're doing a special cook with. We've got a little piggy right here that actually will fit on a Premier Plus 36. So you can do this in the backyard. It actually may end up fitting on a Premier 30 as well. It's about 50 pounds, give or take 2 or 3. But I had met Grant and Brian several years back, and Grant had came to me wanting to do a whole hog. And I have the grills, of course, to do that, and we used our big commercial grill, but we've downsized a little bit to a smaller hog. And when he started cooking the hog, I was curious what he was doing, because he had knives, everything, and I was like, oh, he's just gonna trim it up, make it look pretty. But he had actually started deboning the hog and taking the bones out of the hog. And I thought, now that's an interesting cook. You always see these cooks on how to do pigs and how to roast them and everything like that, but I've never seen a video on how to debone a hog. So with that, we're gonna get started. Grant and Brian are here. They're gonna walk us through everything. So I appreciate it. Hope you enjoy it as much as I am.
So to start off on the hog, the first thing we're gonna do is widen this incision. And we're gonna take back from the hinds all the way back to the buttocks. And then we're gonna take this incision up through the thoracic cavity, open it up, and we're gonna take out the ribs. And we can get a couple spare ribs going. So as you're cutting along the ribs, right along the spine is going to be the loin. And then when you open it up, with the chest cavity, you're coming down, and then you're going to feel where the ribs are starting to go into, and there's going to the spine. And right there is this loin that you can see back here. So you want to take care to just follow the curvature of the ribs as they come out and around, and it keeps that loin intact. So once you've got the underbelly and the loin off the ribs, you got these two ribs and they're stuck to the thoracic spine, and they're also stuck up here to the cervical spine. So you got to get the ribs off. So you take the cleaver, basically you're going to dissect this clean off. There you go. Back to the knife. And what the good Dwayne's doing is he's providing that counter traction that's so important. And they just start sliding off. Okie dokies. So now you got the ribs, and the ribs are ending. So now you have the juncture between the thoracic spine and the lumbar spine. Take cleaver again, chop, chop, and you got your ribs. Then you got your loins right there intact. The next step is you got these little fillets here, one on either side. And you want to clean this area up, because the next step is the lumbar spine and the pelvis. And you get to a point where you see this nice little white stripe or ligament. You just kind of follow that down and around. That you take it at a shallow angle. Then you're at the point, your juncture, where you can almost take it off, but you've got this femur. Now all this big ham, you're going to be cutting into that anyway, so don't worry about marking it up. Just take a knife and make a bold cut to get down to the bone and the joint. So when you get to the femur joint, so it's still a ball and groove joint. So we're just going to go around on the inside. So at some point he's going to be pulling, but to pull, I wouldn't recommend that. Instead what you're going to do is he's going to start pushing in. And as he pushes in, that bone's going to start popping out, and that provides that counter traction.
All I'm doing right now is just kind of holding it up.
Just kind of articulating it, and while I just go right along the bone. So what you're going to do next, you got the ball joint up here, but down below is the hinge joint. You're just going to take your knife, put it in between that joint, and open up the joint. So now that the first femur is out, we've also got this socket you can see that's out, where the ball joint was. We've got this portion of the pelvis. We've got the majority of the lumbar spine out. We're just going to the other side. Same thing. You can think of this as a big triangle of meat. As long as you don't go through the skin, you're fine. You already can tell where your angle is going to be, and bring your cut right along the bone, on up, and the same thing on this side. So now the issue is going to be tail, and you can kind of tell right here. You got the lumbar, pelvis, and now. So I mentioned that we're going to cut the hams out a little bit later. So later on, what we're going to do when we cut these out is we're going to make everything symmetrical. So we're going to cut out a big portion, but place it in the belly. So it's still going to be part of the hog. Same thing with the shoulders. So on the shoulders. So the scapula is wide, broad-based covering. You can kind of see it come out and around. So what we're going to do is we're going to just follow it. So you're just taking your knife in a nice, easy, flat, shallow plane, and you're bringing the meat back over until you get to the margin. And if you get to the margin, you just follow this curvature up and around, and you're going to have a lot of meat on this back side. So once you get basically the shoulder blade, you can start twisting it off.
So there's a socket.
Yep. Similar to the femur, whatever the pig analogous is on the humerus, you're going to go right along the bone. If you need to pop this out just to get an idea about where the bone's at. So like in the knee, this is kind of analogous to the elbow. You got this guy, you just put your knife in, separate the ligaments.
Just keep your knife right up against the bone.
So
again, we're leaving the front bone in.
So again, now we've got this piggy all nice and floppy. And not only is it the size of the difference, but also the type of the meat. So you got this underbelly, this loin, and that's going to probably cook a lot faster than these big thick hams. So we want to kind of even the scale. And then when it gets time to season them, you're going to season them separately too. So you can take all these pieces of meat, lay them off a little bit to the side, and if you season them just by themselves, then because of the smaller volume of meat, it's going to just suck up a lot of the salt. Now we got to close this thing back up and keep all the flavor and keep all the moisture back inside. Now switch the pig up, and all the spices are enclosed, the onions enclosed, and the next thing we're going to do is shake the pig and get ready for presentation.
So as they're tying this up, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about times for tomorrow. We're going to be cooking about 180 to start with, and then start cranking up the heat as it goes longer. So we're thinking we're going to try to eat around 5:30, so we're going to be looking at about a 6-hour cook, but we're probably going to prep for a 7.5-hour cook. So probably about 10 o'clock in the morning, we'll be rolling some smoke to put piggy on. And as we get closer and temp it, we know what temperature we want to get. We want to get the hams to about 195 to 200, along with the pork shoulders. We want to get about that same temperature as well.
So in a 15-second summary, we had the pig, we widened the incision, we deboned it, took out the wedges to make it more symmetrical, we seasoned it, we sutured it back closed, and now we are planning to let this dry brine overnight in preparation for smoking tomorrow.